Cool. Next, I'll pass it on to Kinga.
Hi, thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Kinga. I am originally from Poland and I graduated from UWC Mahindra in India back in 2004. Currently, I work with UWC National Committee of Great Britain and I'm the selections coordinator. So if you're applying or thinking of applying or have already started your application, I am usually the person who responds to your emails and queries, and you will have a lot of contact with me over the next couple of months to a year. So it's really, really lovely to have you here tonight. And over to Andrew.
Thank you, Kinga. Wonderful to be here. And just to let you know that I'm a volunteer with UWC GB. Initially, I became involved as a parent. My son went to Pearson and he graduated a couple of years back, and since then I've become increasingly involved, and King has had me working with her on selections, which has been great, and I also do work for the promotions team. So you stand a good chance of meeting up with me when you do your community conversations, or maybe at an interview later on. So that's me. Georgia, over to you.
Hi, I'm Georgia. I'm a current student at UWC USA. So I've just done my first year and I'll be moving into my second in under a month now. Very excited. And right now I'm at home in Exeter. And Clara.
Hi, I'm Clara. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm at the same stage as Georgia. I've just done my first year at Pearson.
Yes, that's all of us for today. And I guess we'll just get started with some of the pre-prepared questions that we got for you today. And the first one, since we're talking about academics, is what is the IB? And Clara, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so the International Baccalaureate is composed of a lot of different things. So one of the main things that will be quite prominent in your time at UWC will be the subjects that you choose. So you've got to have 6 subjects. You take 3 of them at higher level and 3 of them at standard level. You've got to have 1 first language, 1 language acquisition or another first language, a humanity, some level of maths, a science, and then either an art or another one of the other subjects. You then also have 3 things which are called theory of knowledge, your extended essay, and creativity activity service. And I think they're what's called the core. So creativity activity service, CAS, is how we do it at Pearson is you do activities every week. Which you just have to do for your IB, and they're really fun. There's loads of different options for what you can take, and they're a requirement. And then you have theory of knowledge, TOK, and extended SAE, which you have to do, and they make up some proportion of your IB score. And extended essay, you can kind of do it on whatever you want. It's just a really, really long essay. It's kind of like an EPQ, where you get to explore a subject of your choice. Yeah, is there anything else I should mention?
No, that's very thorough. And also, like, the extended essay is such a good way to prepare yourself for like academic writing for university. I found it really, really helpful further on in life. And maybe Georgia, do you want to tell us a bit about your experience with IB?
Yeah, so of course I'm halfway through the IB right now. So for me, I take higher levels in English literature, global politics, and French B, which is B courses if you've already had some foundations. So it's good from coming from GCSE. And then I do standard level in maths, biology, and Spanish ab initio, which is a beginner. So I don't take a 6th subject, I do 2 languages instead. So I don't do an arts. I found the IB to be very challenging, but very, very rewarding. So I came from GCSEs and I felt not too challenged, not as challenged as I wanted to be. Of course, challenged, that was the wrong way to put it. but the IB definitely has stretched me a lot further. But I find it really good that it's quite self-guided in the sense that, for example, in politics, you've got a lot of freedom to research your own subjects and like topics within it, and that's the same for most subjects. And it is very much you're committing to a 2-year course. In the summer, in the middle, there are still bits of work to do, of course, a lot less than while you're at school. But I'm working on my extended essay right now, which some colleges do in the summer, some don't. And there's different bits of coursework called your IAs, which you have in every subject. Some of them are essays, some of them are verbal. And the essay ones, a lot of those I've got to work on over the summer too. So yeah, that's what I've got to add.
Yeah, that's really good. It's good that you're working on it over the summer. I think that's that's a good idea. And yeah, I think that pretty much explained IB. And I guess I can go on to you, Andrew, to explain how the IB is different from A levels and traditional sixth form experiences.
Okay, thank you, Amalia. Yes, well, the first thing I'll say is that I've never taken the IB. I have taught A levels, so I've been a teacher for over 20 years now. My reaction to the IB is that anybody that is thinking about taking A levels is academically capable of taking the IB. So it's not like you have to be super intelligent to take the IB. From what I can see, I think you have to be super organized. So there's a lot of sort of self-discipline involved in that, which of course is a different skill. And there are other elements that will come into it, sort of alongside all of that. With the colleges, every college is a boarding college, so that might be something new and something in your life that you're dealing with for the first time. So again, part of that sort of organization and taking control very much for your own learning. And that has sort of plus sides to it, as well as downsides to it. It's far more, from what I can see, like a sort of a mini university. Is that sort of idea that you're in control of your education, rather than somebody just saying you're going to study this subject or you're going to study that. That becomes even more apparent once you start looking at things like CAS, so the creativity, activity and the service side of things, where you can make some sort of real choices to do things that specifically interest yourself. And also that applies to the extended essay, which is really good news, because again, although that might be something new, writing sort of several thousand words on a topic, it is something that you want to do and something that you've got an interest in, and something that you've chosen to do, which makes it in many ways a lot easier, I think, than having to do, say, study a book in English or history coursework or whatever it might be. You can actually sort of choose this. So different type of education, and but not something that's beyond doing. It's just different. Kinga, would you like to add some thoughts on that?
Yes, I actually would. And I think that one other thing that is a big difference between A levels and IB is that International Baccalaureate asks you to take 6 subjects from 6 different disciplines, or at least 5 different disciplines, which means that if right now you don't quite know what you want to study or what you want to do after high school, IB allows you that flexibility in 2 years' time to decide. Whereas with A levels, when you're committing to 3 or 4 subjects, very often you have to have at least some sort of direction in mind. If you decide to take more kind of human sciences and humanities, it is really difficult to switch to then go into computer engineering or medicine or hardcore science after high school, and vice versa. Whereas IB, by offering you 6 subjects from 6 different areas, means that your kind of paths are a lot more open after high school. And, you know, and there's two types of people. There are those who know what they want to do in life since the age of 2, since they could speak and they know exactly this is what I'm going to be, and that they don't change their minds. And that's absolutely, you know, wonderful. But there are also people who at the age of 15 or 16 have absolutely no idea what it is they want to do or study or you know, choose for their careers, and that's perfectly okay as well. So I think if you're kind of that person who is unsure and is looking for a little bit more flexibility with what to do after, then international baccalaureate gives you a little bit more flexibility. And a comment I wanted to make about the IB specifically in the UWC setting is that as UWC, we place a lot of emphasis on experiential learning and on learning from each other, rather than only learning from teachers. You know, UWCs have students from 70 countries on every campus or thereabouts. Every single topic we discuss, particularly in things like politics or economics, you will be able to hear on that topic from students from other parts of the world who were taught about that same fact, that same situation, but differently, for a different lens and for a different perspective. And those exchanges and those conversations are not just encouraged, they are very much part of the daily routine and daily study at UWC, meaning that you get, you know, a little bit more of that, you know, ability to put yourself in other perspectives, in someone else's shoes, and to look at the problem from more than just one angle. And this is something that is very, very unique about United World Colleges. And it is partially because there are students from and staff from so many different countries on each campus. And what is beautiful is that colleges really draw from it and really tap into that diversity that is there and really draw from it. And one of the examples I can give for myself is that I never took history as one of my subjects. But when there was a history class on the Holocaust and World War II, our history teacher excused me from all of my classes and asked me to join the history class because he thought that it would be very valuable for other students to hear my perspective on that topic, me being from Poland. And that is kind of what was far more valuable, obviously, to our students taking history, and they felt that I was one of the, you know, kind of more interactive classes they've had. So this is something that is very unique to UWC, that very often student can become a teacher and give you their very unique perspective on a particular topic.
Yeah, no, that's definitely so true. Like, it's not just the IB that's teaching you all this like worldwide knowledge. It's also just living with people all across the world and just like having like ramen with your like Thai roommate or like Nigerian roommate. Like, it's just all these small things that makes up for this larger circle of knowledge in the end. But Kinga, maybe I can also ask you, what are the UWC exam results like in comparison to other IB results?
Sure. So this is actually really a difficult question in a way, because we have just seen a little bit of a change in how people are marked. But in a nutshell, you can get up to 7 marks per subject. And you will be taking 6 subjects, so you can get up to 42 points from your schoolwork. Now, this is not just an exam that gives you a final grade, which some students love and some students find quite challenging. But your grade will be roughly 50% of your grade will come from a final exam that you will sit at the end of the 2 years. And the other half of your grade will come from what is called internal assessments. So every couple of months or every term, depending on the class, you will be asked to do homework that is graded, that is marked. Very often that is marked outside of your school, but by someone else. And this one will count towards your final grade. So it can be, you may be asked to do an art exhibition, and for English or for literature classes, you will have an oral presentation that will be recorded, but you will also have 1 or 2 papers that you have to write and submit. And those will then be graded, and half of your final grade will come from those. So students who tend to do really well in exams, they have a chance to shine. Students who don't, who tend to get very nervous and they don't do well in that exam setting, then they have 2 years of consistent work to show, that they're studying consistently, that they're doing their work, and that will also count towards their final grade. So the fact that your final grade is balanced between the two is actually a really positive thing overall. But you can get a maximum of 45 points on the IB. So where are the other 3 points coming from? Since you can get not more than 7 in any given subject. So you can also get additional up to 3 points from 2 essays that you have to submit. One is the extended essay that was mentioned earlier, which is a 4,000-word essay on a topic of your choice. And another one is right now it's exhibitions or presentations on your theory of knowledge class. So theory of knowledge is a kind of a 7th subject that everybody has to take. And at the end of that course, you will be asked to do a presentation or an exhibition, and that one will also be assessed. So between your theory of knowledge and your extended essay, you can get up to 3 additional points to be added to your IB. And this is a total of 45 points. You also need to pass your CAS. So you actually need to do the extracurricular activities. And it's about how many hours you have, but also I think by now most colleges ask to write your own reflections and your thoughts on the activities you do. And my experience tells me that UWC students do at least double or triple the number of CAS hours that are required to pass. But nonetheless, it is something that the school has to confirm that, yes, you've been engaged in activities outside of school, you have done them, you have discussed them, and therefore you can actually get your diploma. So you don't get extra points for them, but if you don't do any of those extracurricular activities, you can actually fail, even if your exam is, 45. So you still have to engage in those extracurricular activities.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely did way too many of those CASs, and it's just absurd in the end. I
did 11.
Yeah.
We're allowed 3 and I did 11. So
yeah, I cannot recommend that at all. It's a lot of work. Maybe Clara, maybe you could elaborate a bit more on CAS and maybe which ones you are doing.
Yeah, so at my school, you're supposed to pick 2, and then you do each one for 2 hours a week. So I picked astronomy and wilderness because we have an observatory at Pearson, which is really cool. So I thought I'd take advantage of that, and we kind of just go up to the observatory and try and see whether we can see any stars. And we offer, so at Pearson, there's loads of different kind of classes you can do them. You can be really sporty, you can go for canoeing and kayaking. And there's art ab initio, where everyone just goes and draws. There's like a massive range, and you kind of can go to more than you're supposed to. So sometimes I drop in on other sessions, and they kind of run 3 times a week, but you're supposed to go twice. I don't know what you do, Georgia.
And what about you, Georgia? What are you up to?
So yeah, we have US takes it completely in its own way. So this is what you'll learn, like every school does all these kind of things, like there's a set model and then they kind of take it and do what they want with it. So for us, we have 4 signature programs and we have to get 2 credits from each one over our 2 years. So it's a lot more than the IB expects of us, but that's for us to get our diploma from our school. So we have an arts, what's it called, like what did I just call it? A stream? I don't know, like a category, an arts category, a sustainability category, a conflict engagement category, and wilderness. And you have to get 2 credits in each of those. So it's totally like so much, and that's over the 2 years. So there's opportunities to do like musicals, art, all different sports, and a lot of community engagement and conflict engagement. That's a big part of our school. So I do a lot of work. I go once a week to help teach students with dyslexia how to read in a local elementary school, and then once a month I go and work with refugees, teaching them how to read. So that's a big thing of mine. And I do a lot of debate at school. So I'm in Model United Nations and the Ethics Bowl team. We just got flown out to North Carolina to place 3rd in nationals just at the end of the year. So there's some of the opportunities I do.
Kinga, do you want to add something to that?
Yes, so UWCs are all offering the same program of the International Baccalaureate. So in terms of your academics, you can expect more or less a similar kind of level of knowledge that you'll get, although some courses will be slightly different. You may read different books if you're in school in Africa compared to school in Asia. But overall, the IB is a common denominator for all the schools. However, each school is in a different country, in a different location. Some are by the coast, some are in the mountains, some are in the forest. And schools really draw a lot from that natural setting and the environment that they're in. So what you will find is particularly the extracurricular activities, they will be very different, and they will draw a lot from that local opportunities and local environment. So it's, in terms of that co-curricular experience, it will be very, very different depending on which school you go to. And for those of you on the call who have already attended the community conversations, and I'm sure you remember you've been asked about the kind of things that you like to do and the hobbies you enjoy. If you're successful, one of the things we try to do is we try to find a school for you that will have that extracurricular activities and that experience that matches your hobbies and your aspirations and what it is that you enjoy to do, or what it is that you want to do, or what you would like to start. And another really big thing and big advantage of the CAS program at UWC is that all colleges will encourage you to start your own activities and lead on the activities. And a lot of activities are student-led and student-managed. And the leadership of those activities is being passed on from generation of students to generation of students. So if there's something that you would like to do, you would like to explore or start, and it's currently not run in your school, you will have the opportunity to do that. And in fact, some schools make it mandatory for you to lead a project or an activity in your second year. So there's plenty of kind of areas where you can take leadership and you can take charge of those activities, which is absolutely fantastic and very unique, again, for high schools.
Yeah, I don't think you ever get that opportunity to try as many different activities. For instance, in Norway, it's a high emphasis on outdoorness and kayaking and canoeing, and also it's collaboration with the Red Cross. So I was in the Red Cross team, and yeah, one of my favorite things was the rescue session that we had. We went outside of campus to attend this Red Cross seminar for a weekend, and what's it called, mountain rescue or something like wilderness survival it was called, I think. So yeah, I know how to survive now in the wilderness. Yeah, so that was really cool.
And students through CAS are given real responsibility very often. I mean, everybody at RCN is trained in first aid and is properly certified. A lot of students at Atlantic receive training in water safety and water rescue. You have, Mahindra, for example, has an activity where students who aspire to be doctors actually work alongside doctors and conduct very basic tests and administer medication in local villages. There's a whole NGO charity that was actually set up by students at MUCI, and it's a couple of years ago, and it's still running. So students are being given very serious tasks to perform and are being then held accountable and responsible for them. And if you're ever interested in anything marine or maritime related, you can find that the RIB boats, the rigid boats that are used as a standard worldwide in water rescue, have been actually developed and designed by Atlantic students back in the 70s. And this is something that is encouraged throughout the movement in all of our schools, which is, absolutely unique and amazing for a school to give that level of responsibility and accountability to 16, 17-year-olds.
Yeah, it's definitely such a great part of it. And I guess I can move on to residential life. And I guess I could ask you, Georgia, what is the residential life like, and what do the students like or find, how do they find the transition?
So residential life, so we're living in dorm accommodation. So it'll kind of be generally for us and for most schools, it's like houses. So we have 6 different houses, and then in there, there's rooms with your roommates. So in the US, we just have one roommate. They're quite small rooms, and it's a first year paired with a second year. So they kind of become like a buddy. There's someone that you've got straight from the beginning. And we have roommate assessment forms to make sure you get a good match. And I personally love it. I've never shared a room with someone before I left. So sharing a room it felt like it should have been an adjustment, and it wasn't, which was good, but it scared me a bit. I was like, I feel like I should be adapting to someone, but because they work hard to try and make sure you're going to get a good match at my school, then it generally flows quite smoothly. Not always the case. And in general, like the kind of broader dorm life, so you're sharing bathrooms, you're sharing a kitchen, you're sharing space, you're sharing everything, and that is more of an adjustment. You need to get used to just noise continuously, even if it's just background noise. It's not always, screaming down the hallway, but there's always people, there's always gonna be knocks at your doors. You have to start getting used to setting boundaries with people, learning to live with other people's mess in your way, learning to live with other people's routines and habits. And like in our house, there's 40 of us. So it definitely, there's a lot of people, but that's the more like everyday parts. But in general, the community that we get in our houses is amazing. The kind of house rivalry, I'm sure Clara, you can attest to that, that every dorm says that their dorm is the best, which mine is. And, we have dorm competitions. We have house bonding sessions where we'll do barbecues, and we'll have a house parent. Ours are called residential coordinators. They've got different names in different places, and they're the people that really look out for you. So we get checked every evening by our RC, our residential coordinator, and he comes around to our door at the same time every night, and they just make sure you're there, make sure you're okay, see if you need anything, just check that you're healthy and well. And they kind of become like a parent figure for you while you're there, and they're the ones that organize the dorm events.
Yeah, in RCN, I had 4 other roommates, so that was quite chaotic at times. But I think when you're young, you get used to it pretty quickly. You're quite adaptable. So yeah, I think most people will probably adapt quite quickly. But what about you, Clara? Do you have a good experience?
Yeah, so I think my experience was quite similar to George's. We have 5 houses of 40 people, and we have slightly bigger rooms. There's supposed to be 4 people in each room. It's supposed to be 2 second years and 2 first years, depending on numbers. Sometimes it's a little bit different. And I've really loved it. I had a great experience in my room. My roommates were some of my best friends. Doesn't go like that for everybody, and that's kind of fine. But I think it was great, and the community in the house is amazing. Ours is also the best house. And yeah, we have house meetings every week, and everyone kind of gathers, and we have a little hour-long talk about everything going on in the house. We also have house parents, we just call them house parents, who kind of check in on us and stuff. And I think just generally, moving away from home can be kind of hard. So, it is a little bit of an adjustment, kind of getting used to having, I found that I had just less alone time and just less time to myself, especially in the first term, which can be an adjustment. But I think that you do get used to it because everyone's going through the same thing mostly. Yeah.
Kinga, would you like to add something?
Yes, I'll make a more general comment because I graduated so long ago that I think my personal stories are relevant anymore. But what is really important is that the vast majority of our schools offer only 6th form education. So you're there for those 2 years that are equivalent of A-levels. However, some of our schools are schools and they're through schools. And they may have either younger students on site, or they may have day students who would come for classes and then go home afterwards. Now, none of you who apply for the British National Committee would have a possibility of being a day student. So regardless where you go, even if you go to one of those schools that have day students, you would be a boarding student and you would be a residential student. So we very often get questions about, whether I can just attend Atlantic Monday to Friday, come home for weekends, or whether I can go for a day and come home in the evening. No, you can't. Even if you're going to your local school, UWC Atlantic in Wales, and you live 5 minutes down the road, you will still be a boarding student and staying on campus for most of the time. In terms of also boarding and kind of exceptions to that, students are allowed to go out. It's not a prison. You are allowed to go out for shopping. You will have trips on weekends. You will have activities taking place off campus. And you will also have a set number of weekends when you are allowed to go away for a whole weekend and spend the night off campus. There are also breaks that are called project weeks, where you will be doing a school project off campus. And there can be very, very different types of project weeks. And some colleges will actually have an additional break built in, which is just for you to travel. And it literally is a week when you are meant to go and travel and explore the country or the area where you are. So there's a lot of opportunities of, while being a boarding student, to also have that little bit of flexibility and that little bit of freedom and exploration. And I loved really what Clara said about the house parent checking in on you every day. And it is very much the case that you will have a person, and that's true for every college, you will have an adult living either in the same house, in the same building, or very close to it, whose task will be to check in on you every evening and to make sure that you are okay and nothing happened, you're not ill, you're doing physically and mentally well. And these people will most likely become very, very close to you, and you will become very close to them as well. And they do become like substitute parents in many ways. And it's not there to be, reinforcing a strict curfew or rules of, lights out and, power cuts. Now you're not allowed to leave the room. No, that is absolutely not like that. It is just to make sure that everybody is as well as healthy. As life at UWC can be very busy and very hectic. And so this is this kind of one point during the day when they have an opportunity to check, that everyone is safe, everyone is okay, nothing bad happened during the day. So I think that will be from me on residential life and boarding, and I'm sure Andrew will have something to say to that as well, as a parent who experienced it from a slightly different perspective.
Thank you, Kinga. Yes, very much so. Of course, as a parent, I guess you're sort of concerned about how's your son or daughter getting on with life generally, not just sort of academically, but the whole sort of social thing. And what's really important to remember is that these are colleges. It's not university, and there are people there. You've heard students talk about house parents, and I think that's a really, really important part of all the UWC colleges, that there are people there that have direct responsibility for not only sort of the academic side with students, but also the pastoral side. And it's not just house parents. There are obviously other people at colleges, and then there's sort of health and welfare with UWC GB that either students or parents can contact if they want. But whilst there is that sort of university feel to a lot of sort of taking responsibility for sort of the academic side and other sides as well, it is a school. And as a parent, that's really, really sort of encouraging to know that there are people there that the students can go to, that there are also members of staff that as a parent you can contact and you can say sort of what's the situation with this. And in all my dealings with UWC, with Pearson in my case, they were terrific at sort of answering emails or ringing them up. Obviously you've got the in Pearson's case, I think at the moment it's about 8 hours time difference, and there's sort of that to contend with as a parent. But people were generally pretty good at responding, and you soon find out who are the right people to contact to get things done or to ask questions. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a very good answer. I guess my last question is, how does coronavirus affect UWC life? Maybe Kinga can answer a bit to that.
Yes, I think luckily it's not affecting it as much anymore. But I must say, for the last few years, UWCs were quite affected by the coronavirus, just like the rest of the world. And we've had colleges go through various forms of lockdowns, forms of online learning, some students not being able to make it to the colleges and having to set classes from their homes in different countries and different time zones. There was a lot of disruption with getting visas, passports, and flights. However, at the moment, this seems to be a little bit more under control. At the moment, we only have one college that is unable to accept international students, and that's the school in China, because China still has not agreed to issue student visas for 2022 entry. Otherwise, all of our colleges at the moment can accept international students. Visas are being issued with longer delays or no delays at all, depending on the country, but all students attending all of our other colleges managed to successfully secure visas and passports. Travel is far less restricted. We can travel pretty much anywhere, sometimes there's still a requirement for either a COVID test or COVID vaccine, but otherwise travel is possible. Aden, Hong Kong College is issuing visas, so students can go to Hong Kong. It's only our college in mainland China that does not issue visas. That's a good question, thank you. So in terms of kind of going forward and what we are seeing going forward is that some schools over the last 2-3 years had slightly different mix of nationalities, which I'm sure Clara will note too. There have been issues where, for example, Canadian visa was restricted to students from some parts of the world. So there was a whole class that didn't have any students coming from Africa, for example, simply because they couldn't get visas. But by now, most colleges managed to kind of even that out and are either already back to the kind of the mix that they really like, or are on track of getting there by the time you would be starting in 2023. So other than having, and again, this is me being a little bit perhaps naive and definitely being very optimistic, but coronavirus seems to be something that the colleges know how to manage quite well. And I think the overall learning from the last 2 years of the pandemic is that the colleges also have proper policies and protocols for how to react to similar situations. And it's not the first pandemic that UWC has been through. I have lived through a pandemic as a student. We had SARS when I was a student there, and the protocols were slightly different back then. But what we currently have as an organization and as a global organization is that we have a set of structures, set of protocols that can be implemented very quickly in the event of a similar crisis and similar set of circumstances, and nobody kind of wonders about, what would be the best course of action. There's contingencies, there's plans, and everybody knows what to do, which I think is a very positive thing should coronavirus continue to be a global challenge, or knock on wood, should we have another pandemic of a different source, of a different kind.
Yeah, fingers crossed it doesn't happen again. I guess we can go to the general questions now, because I'm done with my questions. So we can start with the first one I see above here. Can you do a language if you haven't previously done one for GCSE, and how would it be more challenging? Any takers?
Yeah, I can take it. So UWC schools and colleges offer languages at various levels. You can take a language as a complete beginner, assuming you have never had anything to do with that language. You can take a language at a kind of intermediate level, or at native level, in which case you would be studying literature in that language. So, of course, I would say any level has its own challenges, but taking a language from the very beginning, from scratch, yes, it is adapting to learning a new language, but it's also the one where the curriculum is the most set, because you are starting from scratch. Whereas if you go to an intermediate class, intermediate means very different things for different people. And the range of kind of proficiency with an intermediate class can be very vast. Whereas for the introductory class, well, everybody's starting from scratch, or maybe has a very tiny bit of experience with that language. So it's definitely, in that sense, it is less challenging than intermediate class, but it is challenging in that sense that you are learning something that you've never learned before. And it can be, depending how quickly you learn languages, it can be quite intimidating, or it can be really fun. Personally, I really enjoy learning new languages. So.
Right, Matthew, do you have something?
Yeah, just to add to that comment about languages, I think the added benefit of learning a language at UWC is that you actually live with people that may speak your language. So for instance, I did Spanish. The subject is called Spanish ab initio, which means from scratch. And it had just so happened that one of my roommates was from Uruguay. So we had a thing where we spoke Spanish for 15 minutes every single day. And I think it's sort of, it's these types of things which allow you to engage beyond the curriculum. And I think that's what makes language learning at UWC so much more unique.
That's really smart. I should have done the same thing. I guess I'll go next. How do you as applicants distinguish themselves? So I guess the people that do get admitted to UWC USA probably. Do you want to try Kinga or Georgia?
Okay, Georgia, why don't you give it a go?
I don't 100% understand the question.
The question is just, how do you as applicants distinguish themselves?
Like as a Brit applying, or as?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
I'm sorry, I really don't understand. Can you do you
I can take
and I can.
Okay, I'm happy to take this one. So first of all, when you're applying, the number one thing is to be yourself. And I honestly can't stress that enough. Be yourself throughout the application process. The point is that we really, really want to get to know you, and we really want to understand why you're applying to UWC and what keeps you going. I don't think there's a way of kind of distinguishing yourself and pushing for standing out or being different. It's, or at least I don't think it has ever worked, quite frankly, for the candidates. It is about really trying to be honest and being yourself. And if you're inquiring about how to get into a specific college and how to make sure that you are picked for a specific college, then during the application process, you will actually be asked to complete a form in which you specify which specific campuses you want to be considered for. And that is your space to tell us which schools you would like to be considered for. But we also encourage people to keep their options open, as I know Georgia will attest to that and say that she didn't actually originally consider USA as her top choice, and now she wouldn't want to change it for anything else. Matthew.
Yeah, no, I mean that was a completely different interpretation of the question. But if this person was referring to eligibility, in terms of distinguishing yourself, you can find eligibility to apply through the Great Britain National Committee on our website. I'll send through the link in a couple minutes. But yeah, that was my answer. Different interpretation, I guess.
Yes, I guess the next one I see here is, does the schools provide standardized testing such as SAT or ACT, etc.? Anyone with the specialized knowledge?
So some colleges are registered centers for exam centers. So some colleges will allow you to take those exams on site. Some, on the other hand, will organize it for you to go to the nearest test center if you register for a test. So in short, they are available through your colleges, but the preparation, the studying, the registration process, and the payment process for those exams is always on the student. But the school will facilitate and make sure that you get to that exam, whether it's on campus or off campus.
Yeah, I forgot that I did the SATs actually at RCN.
I taught SATs. As my CAS, I actually taught SAT math prep course as CAS. It was so much fun.
That's crazy. Next one. Are there any subjects similar to computer science at any schools?
Yes. So IB offers, as one of the sciences, there is a course called computer science, and that course is offered by some of UWC schools and colleges. In addition to that, some colleges, particularly those in Asia, although not only, do have a CAS activity which is focused on either coding or programming or robot coding. And I know students go through like robotic competitions and so on. So there's plenty of opportunities, and I know definitely Mahindra, Thailand, Southeast Asia do offer computer science at present, and will be offering them in 2022. I don't have a full list for 2023, but there's always at least 3-4 colleges that do offer computer science as your IB class as well.
Yeah, and every school differs a little bit in the subjects they can offer in general. So it's just check out on the web page of the school, or I think there should be an overview somewhere as well to what each of the individual school offers. So if you're interested in something in particular, it's useful to check out if they actually offer what you want to study.
Also, if you're applying and if you're invited to the interview stage, in the last stage, you will receive from us approximately 110-page long document with information about every college, and it will have confirmed subjects for the 23-25 academic program in it. So if you can't find that information online, if it's not available through the websites, which very often it isn't, don't worry, you will receive that information from us in November if you are invited to the interview stage, because we will have that information confirmed at the end of October. So don't worry about it. You will definitely have access to that information when the time is right.
Yes, and I guess another question that popped up here is, how does being LGBTQ affect your placement? Does it limit your potential placement applying through the US National Committee?
I don't think we can answer about the US National Committee. I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have any, but I'm sure it, doesn't affect. But yeah, I mean, if anyone has any more questions, there's another one there. Is there access to all sports, at least at one college somewhere, and how you should continue to compete? For instance, trampolining.
Different colleges offer different sports on different levels. So if you mention that you're participating in a particular sport, and if you're on a specific level, either in your community conversation or later on in your application form, we will be contacting you to discuss your options. One of our colleges, specifically UWC Thailand, actually has an Olympic training center for various sporting disciplines. So, if you're training on that level, that you are actually aspiring to go to the Olympics, UWC Thailand can offer training on site. If you're, on the other hand, training for fun and as a hobby, then there's a lot more opportunities in different schools. But obviously that will depend on your level, your aspirations, and the sport. So we will be discussing that individually with candidates who say that that is something that they do and they're on high level and they want to continue with it.
Yes, so another question is, it could be really helpful to hear from a UK perspective about LGBTQ, please. Maybe Clara, would you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so at Pearson, I can talk for Pearson. We have an LGBTQ club, and is it a club? Like so we have groups of students that meet up kind of once every while. They have bondings and stuff like that. I think it's quite a good place to be LGBTQ. We also have gender neutral rooms, and we have 2 in every house, and gender neutral bathrooms around campus, which they were incorporating this year for us. So we have gender neutral, we've always had gender neutral bathrooms in the houses, and now we're incorporating them all around campus. Yeah.
What about in the USA, Georgia?
So for me, I found the LGBTQ plus community to be absolutely incredible here. I know, yeah, Kinga also attests to it when she asked me to talk about things. It really is one of the best UWCs to be in. We've got a group of students called The Closet who have student leaders, so 2 people who are openly out as LGBTQ plus will lead that group, 2 second years, and they have meetings, I believe once every 2 weeks, and there's events all the time on campus, such as LGBTQ only opening hours for the gym. There's a Pride Week that we do in April, since obviously we missed Pride month of June. We do a drag show, we have brunches and dinners just for the Closet community, and that's a completely confidential space. And we also have mixed gender dorms and gender neutral dorms. So actually the dorm that I was placed in, so the kind of house building that I was talking about, mine is the gender neutral one. So I ended up in that one, which I absolutely love. It's the only one that's got boys, girls, everything in between, and it's amazing. The community is so supportive, and yeah, you can still ask what roommate you want to be in, what gender of roommate you would like to have if you were in a situation where you were a part of that community. And yeah, it really is just such a good place to be. And it's not every college, I'm kind of doing Kinga's bit now, explaining that. Not every college is as accepting as US or Pearson. As Clara was saying, there are some schools where in the country it would be dangerous to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community. So it does limit your range of options, but not necessarily, well, not at all your eligibility to go through to be nominated to a school. Might just limit which schools. Have I said that right, Kinga?
Perfect. That's exactly what I just wanted to say. But yes, not all schools will have all facilities. Not all schools are in countries where being LGBTQ plus community member is legal. So you know, if you are kind of part of that community, we will be having a private conversation as well at some point, because particularly for students who are transgender, there are some schools where that wouldn't be kind of by the country you're in, that wouldn't be legal. And we obviously wouldn't want you to be in a position where, you know, you're an outsider, or, you know, the school will still be accommodating, but other institutions may not be. So you still can apply, you will still go to school, but there are a few where we would be a little bit more conscious, and we would like to understand a little bit better, you know, kind of where you are in that LGBTQ community, to make sure that you go to a college that will have the right facilities, the right kind of structure, the student body, and also anything that is outside of campus that will be suitable and welcoming, so you don't feel like a bit of a pariah when you step outside. And that is something that I really want to stress, that as a movement, if you think about UWC as a movement that you're applying to rather than individual schools, we will have facilities and support systems for almost anything out there, from physical disabilities, mental health challenges, you know, LGBT community, which is obviously not in any way a problem or an obstacle or a special need. If you have any learning needs, as a movement, we can support all that, but not one college, not one single college can support everybody. So we need to have a little bit more information and then discuss your options accordingly. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it did at least. And I guess we're almost coming to an end, but another question is, would you say your religion can have an impact on your stay in the college? Anyone?
Well, again, I can give you a brief kind of overview of what it's like in the movement, and Clara and Georgia can definitely speak to the situation at their specific schools. But all UWCs, none of UWCs have religious affiliations, and students of all faiths and religions are welcome. Most colleges will have some sort of multi-faith room where you are able to kind of, commit your prayers and spend some time. A lot of colleges will also facilitate attending some sort of service in at least those faiths that are available at that location, which sometimes can be limiting. And we need to be very open about it. It's just really, I think when you're at Mahindra in India, it's quite easy to practice anything in Hindu, Islam, or kind of Christian traditions. But if we're going to some of the other colleges, that it may be a little bit more challenging to find a kind of a prayer place that correlates to your religion. But the campuses themselves will always have some sort of prayer room, safe space. A lot of schools also celebrate different events and different festivities of different faiths and religions. I mean, all colleges will have special menu and special diets for Ramadan. For students who are fasting, there will be early breakfast and dinner just for fasting students. All colleges will celebrate things like Diwali or Holi, obviously Easter and Christmas, and many other religious or religiously affiliated festivals and events. And those will be celebrated by the whole community, with students being given an opportunity to explain what that means in your cultural context. So it's very welcoming to students of all faiths and religions.
Yeah, I guess that's the time for today. But if you do have any more questions, we are available on all social medias and email. And you can also come back for any of our other sessions. I think the next one will be on applying. Am I right? Am I wrong? So yeah, definitely come back if you're there's more questions that you have in mind. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this session and that you apply and that we answered maybe some of your questions in the end. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today.